This is The Neutral Position, hosted by Nick Palmisano, bringing honesty and reason back into conversation. Here's your host, Nick Palmisano.
Hey guys, welcome to The Neutral Position. Today we have Jim Horatio Algiers Young. He is a veteran. He is a serial entrepreneur who has done everything from install high-end stereos to make wonderful Salvation Coffee, who is not a sponsor of this program, despite the fact that here we are using their mugs, and now is a cookie and pastry mogul. Jim, welcome to the show.
Mogul.
Tell us about yourself, Jim.
Well,
he's also the president of Durham Pistol and Rifle, one of the oldest gun clubs
1946
in the world, or at least America.
Yeah, at least America. I think there's some places in Pennsylvania that got us beat by 100 years or so.
Just a hundo, though. In the big scheme of things, that's a blink of an eye.
And it's all duck and fish.
Yeah.
Well, I just, I think I'm probably the least interesting person you've ever had on here.
I think we all agree on that.
But
I can agree to that.
I mean, look, on phone, I've got John Reese Davies and Bill Smitrovich. I mean, come on. And Donnie O'Malley's, who's super funny.
You're an interesting guy. I'm not going to let you get away with that. You're an interesting guy. Very few people are even good at one thing, and you have been good at multiple things, multiple businesses, completely different businesses. Like, my entrepreneurial journey at least follows a thread. It's like, okay, well, I got good at, marketing and all in order to have a successful t-shirt company, so that I transitioned to marketing and film. Yours is like, I'm installing high-end stereo, now you're a cookie maker. There is no rhyme or reason to this. So you're an interesting character. So
well,
I'm
not
letting you say that.
The stereo stuff just came about from a love of music, and I couldn't play any instrument. So, okay, what's the next best thing? Well, you let other people hear it and make it sound good. And it was a natural. I never really took any formal education or anything on that as far as electronics. I just liked tearing stuff apart and seeing how it worked and putting it back together and maybe modify it. And I would, like 6th grade, I would build my own speakers at the house.
Oh, so you were doing it as far back as then?
Oh, yeah. Just because I love music, but I could not play an instrument, or just the fact that my parents couldn't afford it. So, I always had friends that had old stereo equipment and stuff, and I would take it.
My dad and I used to fix, Fisher speakers or stuff back in the day. Like take them apart, fix them if something went wrong, fix the cabinetry, rewire it. So that was a thing. People used to fix things. They don't just throw them away.
What was it, the old Heath kits where you buy the kits and you could build your own speakers or little ray guns back in the day out of the comic book ads?
Yep.
Yeah,
So
wasn't it back in like the 50s and stuff? They came with how to fix your own vacuum cleaner instead of just throwing it out.
So you got into electronics way back then?
Just kind of dabbled because I didn't know. I mainly messed with the speakers, and I learned about the crossovers and why certain components would filter out frequencies and things like that, and it just I would just play around in my room until you have there's speakers everywhere, and then you get a stereo for your birthday and you're playing, whatever's out then. I think it might have been Def Leppard's High and Dry at that time. So, yeah, it was pretty cool.
Very cool. So what led you to the military?
Honestly, sheer boredom. I was born in North Carolina. I grew up in Knoxville, Tennessee, and my father passed away. And so we stayed for a few more years, and then my mom decided she wanted to move back to North Carolina. And so, of course, I was 16 at the time. So, of course, I had to go wherever Mom went. So we packed up a 30-foot U-Haul. And
that's a tough time to move.
Yeah, it sucked.
That's because you have your friend group and everything.
Oh, yeah.
Then you're the new guy, and that sucks.
Yeah, so here we are. We packed up everything, a 30-foot U-Haul, and coming across the mountain. At that time, coming across the mountain, it was only like 2 lanes.
Mm-hmm.
And if there was a rock slide, and here I am, because I'm the man,
Yep.
or the young man, 16 years old, mom's sitting over there.
You're the man of the family at that
And
time.
I learned about U-Haul puts governors on their motors, so you can't go over 55 miles an hour. So I think it was this is before Cracker Barrel was really big. I think it was called the Lemon Tree. It was right outside of Sevierville. We pulled over, and I'm under the hood trying to figure out how to get that off. So that
So you
that
took
was
the
pretty.
governor. You took the governor off of the U-Haul.
Yeah, it would not go over 55 miles an hour, and it irritated the shit out of me. So, and I was used to driving Mom's 79 T-Bird, and it would definitely go over 55. But we got back here, and I'm trying not to say a lot, but I've noticed in interviews I do that a lot. So it's a drinking game. So we got to Burlington, and I started the school there. The school, it was a nice school, but I went to Farragut High School in Tennessee, and which now Farragut's their own town. Great school. I mean, just beautiful people. And we got back here. Burlington is kind of I love Burlington, and I'm glad to have a business there. But at that time, Burlington was like a beer town with a champagne price or champagne attitude. And the school just wasn't that great. And I went for 2 weeks, and I couldn't stand it. They were telling me that I couldn't drive because I hadn't had driver's ed, but I had driver's ed in Tennessee, but they weren't recognizing it. And I'd already been driving for like 2 years because I had a permit when I was 15. So that kind of irked me. So I just go to Alamance Community College and get start doing the GED thing. And I ended up one day just went to the recruiter's office and went into the Marines. My mom was a Marine, and I went in, and they sent me up to Raleigh to do the the MEP, do all the testing and the physicals and all that stuff, and got all through that. So they put me in delayed entry so I could get my diploma and then go in. So I was 17 at the time that I got into the delayed entry. Sat around, and my mom said, well, if you're going in, you can just take the summer and have a good time. So, okay, thanks, Mom. And we just at summer, and I remember there was an Army recruiter. I didn't know he was an Army recruiter at the time. I just saw this guy. He was always in an Army uniform, and he had this sweet ass Honda. I think it was a CB500 at the time. It's like the first turbo motorcycle with the gold rims, and we were laying out at the swimming pool at the apartments where we lived, and he came up and he said, I saw you at the recruiting station. What are you doing? I said, well, I'm going in the Marines.
This dude's stalking you.
Yeah,
he's getting you.
Army guy.
He's getting you at the pool, and, man. That's dedication.
I said, yeah, I'm going in the Marines, and he said, well, what are you going to do? I said, I don't know. They put you where they want you. And he said, well, the Army will pay you cash. I was like, okay. So that next day, whenever they were open, I think that might have been a Saturday or Sunday. So following Monday, I'm at the recruiting station at the Army guy's office, and they had those laser discs. He popped that laser disc in, and
the old laser disc. That was cutting edge technology at the time.
Guys jumping out of airplanes and popping up out of the ground, and I'm like, I want to do that. He said, well, that's the infantry. We'll give you $5,000 when you get out of school. I was like, okay, cool. And so I said, let's do it now. So I went ahead and went in and
didn't talk to your mom or anything.
Didn't say anything. My mom didn't really want me to go in. And
so was she happy or sad? First of all, at that time, very rare to have like a mom in the Marine Corps.
Yeah, it was.
So she was a hard lady.
She would have been in the 50s. I believe. Yeah, she's born in 30. Yeah, so she was in around the 50s, and she spent all of her time at Camp Lejeune. It just the stories. She had some great stories, but she didn't. She did say, I don't want you to go, but it was more of like she just said it and that was it. And I know she came home one day and I was watching like Gomer Pyle or something, and she comes in and she said, it's not like that. I said, no, it's not like that, Mom. I'm not that stupid. But it was the Marines, so it might have been like that, you know, Gomer Pyle. So I go in. They, of course, I had a beautiful mullet, head of hair, nice brown, beautiful. And you get to Fort Benning, and they got the Floby. You don't even see that shit hit the ground.
They took my mane.
And I'm like, I was born with a birthmark, so I'm telling I'm talking to the barber, and I said, my recruiter said I didn't have to get all mine cut off because of my birthmark.
And they're like,
sure, kid.
Yeah, that's nice.
And I was like, so get everything your recruiter says in writing. I was so stupid.
He lied.
Yeah. I was so stupid. I wish, you hear about guys that, the guys now, the young men, not my age, younger, where they took lawyers with them when they enlisted, and they had everything put in, so they got to go to what that baby SF program or whatever it was.
Yeah, the 18X.
They kept telling me, like, when I got to Fort Benning, we got out of infantry school, and immediately I got a chance to call home and say, hey, I'm done, and then immediately you got to go to Germany. And Germany was the fucking last place on my list. I didn't even think I had it on there. Hawaii was first, Fort Bragg was second. And
Germany's awesome, though.
Oh, it was beautiful.
It's awesome.
And so they shipped me to Germany.
Where were you in Germany?
Schweinfurt,
okay.
Alpha 230.
You know where the ball bearing plants were in World War II?
Yes. It was bombed
It's
heavily.
all ball bearings, Hollywood.
All ball bearings.
Yeah. That so they shipped me there. I got there, and I had just turned 18, and like that's probably the scariest shit, because I was a mama's boy. My mom raised me, and I just
but it was a Marine mom. So does it?
Yeah,
really,
it was a Marine.
Does it count?
Different.
Does it count? Like
I knew not to do something if she said, "Don't you ever do that again." I knew not to do it again. But
Were you there?
84 to 88.
Knee deep in the Cold War.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It was serious.
Yeah.
And,
so you were getting there just as we were crushing people in the Olympics.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So they
good year. John Smith won the gold that year.
The 80 wasn't that? No, when did Atlanta get bombed? When was Atlanta Olympic?
92.
That was 90. Okay, yeah, so that was
A little later.
No, 96.
What do I know
Was
about
Atlanta
history?
92 or 96? Somebody with a phone. What year was the
somebody
Atlanta? Was the Atlanta Olympics?
Google it. Hollywood.
I think it was 96.
I was gonna go with 92.
Cam, are you finding this out for us? I think it was 96.
I think it was 96.
Did you look?
Well,
Yeah.
at least we got a halfway decent Clint Eastwood movie out of it.
92 was Kim Zemeskel and Shannon Miller doing. I remember that
Was
because
it
that was
the wrestling?
No, they were gymnastics. But
Oh, okay.
I remember that was the year that they had NBC triple cast. It was groundbreaking stuff because in the old prior to that year you could only watch whatever they were showing on on NBC. So then NBC launched this pay-per-view. It was pay-per-view and you got 3 channels. It was called triple cast. You could pay
right over double them, right to triple.
and we bought it specifically so that I could see
The wrestling
and
Yeah.
judo.
Okay.
Because otherwise you were never going to see those things.
Because they're like, oh, that's not the hot ticket
Yeah.
in the Olympics.
That's right. We want to see track and field.
I want to see track and field and swimming.
Come on.
So-
Every event looks the same. Like, oh, no, he's an Olympic champion and running slightly longer than the last guy, and that's meaningful. but yet like wrestling, like a lifetime commitment to like an art form that's extremely complex.
Muscle and bone collide.
We're putting on like the third channel.
I apologize, Jim. I don't even know why we got you on the show.
Yeah, I'm just on one today. Anyway,
I wrestled a little bit when I was younger.
Oh yeah.
Not professionally, in the yard.
Did you get like lawn chairs and stuff?
It was always like, I bet you can't take Scott Reagan. I bet I can.
Off the trampolines.
So you're in
No, we didn't have that
Germany.
shit.
You're in Germany, surrounded by ball bearings in the Olympics.
In Germany, surrounded by ball bearings. And I remember the when I first got there, everybody was out in the field. The whole battalion was in the field. So you get there, the cab lets you off, and you go in, you check in with the battalion, and it's nobody's there. So I go to figure out where the company's at, and I go in this room, and it's like, what the hell do I do now? And I mean I've gone through infantry school, all that, and which I thoroughly enjoyed it. I love getting dirty, running through obstacles and stuff like that. And I get there, and I'm like, this is real shit. I'm in the damn army.
Yeah.
And
because that was the front lines. People don't realize that.
So I just sat there, and I figured out which bunk was mine. It was the only one that didn't have shit on it. And so I just sat there, and I'm like, what the hell? So I bawled for about, I don't know, 15 minutes. And then it's just like, okay, that's done. It's time to do it. So I sat there. I guess I fell asleep, and the next day they came in from the field, and I think they had just came in from veal flicking, and they had a lot of. I just remember there was a shitload of miles gear, all the miles gear. So that was my first thing. I got to clean all the miles gear and put it up and ready for the next time.
So miles gear, for those of you that don't know, it's basically like the military version of laser tag. So you attach this annoying equipment to all of your already heavy annoying equipment. The worst part was putting and like these things are not like nowadays everything's small, but this was like, you had to put this thing on your head, on your helmet, which was already way heavier than the helmets nowadays. And but the battery pack was on the back. And it was like regular batteries in it. So you have like 2 pounds hanging off your back. So you're already sitting with like, I don't know, 4 pounds, 5 pounds of helmet.
Another LBE
then it's like
on
this.
top of that.
So the thing's riding up. And then you like have another thing that's tied to your body, which is always getting involved with your gear. It's a pain in the butt. Miles gear was like basically the worst. I'm sure they still use it. But
what was the little thing that you had to screw on the end of the M16?
On the
you shot blanks.
Yeah, and that thing was like this big, and you put that on the end of your rifle. So now the rifle, like, it was such a pain in the ass. Now everything's kind of cool.
Gas, so it would keep the. I guess
the blank adapter.
Yeah.
Yeah, the blank adapter. I thought you were talking about just the laser, which was huge. But
that was even worse.
The blanket. So, for those of you that don't know, if you have like military friends that post like pictures of them as like badasses, but sometimes they forget to take off the blank adapter because it was like fake war, not real war. Like that's like the ultimate sad moment. Is like if you're doing a badass photo with a blank adapter.
It's like bad trigger discipline.
Yeah.
It's just like, bro.
And it's yellow or red, so it really sticks out.
Red,
it's
so
like,
it's
what's
like,
that lollipop on the end of your rifle?
Or if you see photos of people dressed as badasses, but they're always oddly cut off right at the end of the rifle.
Yeah.
There's a blank
camo.
adapter on that thing. Anyway, so you're cleaning miles gear, living your best life.
Yeah. It was just Germany. Then you find out that wow, the regular army is like what, 5 to 5, and you have the weekends off. So it was like, oh, okay, this is like a regular job.
Yeah.
And I just did that. I enjoyed it. It was extremely fun. It's like being in the mountains of North Carolina, and the people were so nice. My favorite time was probably when we were on border patrol, which was when I was injured, and I was discharged after I got injured. And
you got to tell us the story. Is there like a good story?
Well, it was. This would have been in 80.
Was it you versus a Russian?
No, I wish.
In hand-to-hand combat?
Yeah.
It would have been a Czechoslovakian, but I guess same difference.
What most people don't realize, like you said, that was the real war.
Yeah, the wall was up.
There were 30 million Russians across the border just waiting to come into Germany.
Yeah.
Yeah, they we ended up, there was a cavalry company at one post, and it was the entire company that was there 24/7, 365 days a week. They were there. And so we went, and I think it was my platoon went and relieved the entire company, which will tell you the difference in infantry over, cavalry. So we went, we went and relieved the cavalry company so they could go be home for Christmas with their families because they'd been there all the time.
So you were there for Christmas.
We were there.
That's
Christmas.
That's a tough first Christmas.
You really don't. I was so just so young, and me in Germany was way different than me here, because it was almost just surreal. Because I still was like, I'm in the army. I'm doing this stuff. It was just a little crazy. So we get there, and they hook us up. Of course, we had to go through this training about what we had to get top secret clearance, and I don't think that's ever been withdrawn. So I might be able to get into some of these documents because I don't think they ever said that I didn't have it anymore. But we had to get.
It typically expires. You typically have to have it redone every 4 years.
Let's find out.
Well, so I'd say
I'd say it's expired.
87.
I think
I'd
say your TS clearance from 87 has expired.
Give it a shot.
Shooting from the hip here. They might have a Jim Young exception though.
There might be.
There's too many 20-year-olds.
If your mom was a Marine. But we we did all that, and we had to learn about the 50-meter zone, the 1K zone, and all that stuff, and what a frag rep was, and because there were different versions, and the East Germans or the Russians, they could come over anytime, but there was one zone that was in between the fences and where the wall actually was, where there was a police force. I think it was the BGS, the Bundesgrenzschutz. I think that's what they were. Mm-hmm. They were the only force that was allowed to go from one side to the other. They didn't have to get permission. But for anybody else, you had to have permission, or that was a frag rep. I think that's what it was when somebody violated the area. And I mean, the shit would come down because it would just be like, oh, my God.
Yeah.
And so at first, Reforger was going on, which is when all the troops come over, all the European, the NATO troops come over to Germany, and they do all these different maneuvers as if there was another war and all this. So we were in a Jeep, and it was just a
Jeep. A Jeep, ladies and gentlemen. A Jeep.
Wait, they didn't have Hummers back then?
The real Jeep. No, they did not have Hummers. And so it's kind of crazy because it was first platoon, we were the first squad. So it was Sergeant Marsh, I was a Spec 4, and we had PFC Levine, which I have great stories about him. We got there, and our mission that first week when Reforger was going on was we were to go to different outposts where they had set up different posts for the troops that had came over to make sure there were no cold weather injuries. So, and if they were, we had to check on them. And
yeah.
There was one, the guys, they had this Bradley fighting vehicle, and it was pretty damn cold that year. And they got cold, they dropped the ramp, and there was an M1, they backed the M1 up and
and they
revved it and blasted it.
Yep.
So here's their AM PVS4s or PVS5s, the cases were all melted and shit. The headsets that they had on were melted. So we had to report that, and I think we had one guy that had leaned up against a tank, and it had pulled his skin off. Yes, no, it froze it. So
it froze.
Yeah, and so we're just the next thing. We did that for I think that whole week. We were just driving around, and there was one time we got stuck in the middle of this field, and you see these Nordic skier dudes. That's how they got around. You know,
Yeah.
you think it's like a fitness program, but it's not. That's
Yeah.
how these farmers went from one spot to another. Because in Germany, it was like a little town, and then like forest, farmland, and then a little town, and there were people all over. You just never knew it till you saw them out, and they're doing this. So we waved him down. We're in the middle of this field, and Sergeant Marsh was in there. He's trying to look on the map because we didn't have GPS or anything. You actually have to, get your coordinates where you're at on the map. And he's like, I think we're over the border, because where we were at, it was like little squares that were buried in the ground, and we had to go over, and if we found one, we had to uncover it and stuff. And of course, we did the obligatory pee on the other side. You got to stand on the stone and pee. So he said, we have got to get the hell out of here. So we're like flagging this farmer down. This farmer comes out with this big tractor and hooks us up and pulls us back across. And it was just so crazy because, at the time I think about it, I was like, well, that was pretty serious when you think about it in the whole grand scheme of things. But at that time, I just thought,
it's really just a bunch of guys,
just having fun.
War stupid.
So
even cold ones.
Yeah, we did that for. I think that was when we were running around in the Jeep. That was, we did that for a week or something. We had to check the reforger guys, and then the next thing was we met the BGS at this one little point, and it was just pine trees everywhere. You never knew when the snow was up to your knees. Yeah. And these guys had some of the coolest shit. I mean, they're MP5s. They're everything. They're just dressed to the nines. And here we've got all our clunky gear on, and we're humping through the woods. And it's like, hey, where are we going? And the guy's like, oh, we go up here, get in the cabin and get warm, look around a little bit. And I was like, oh, yeah, right. So we go up, and sure enough, there's like a little 2-man cabin. They put me and I think it was Levine that was with me. They put us in, and it had a fireplace on the back end of it. They stoked the fire, and we just sat there and got warm until they radioed and told us it was time to come back. And never saw a wall. I saw a fence, but never really saw the wall. I think when you got closer to Berlin and stuff.
Yeah, sure.
But we just did all that, and the Jeep that we were in, I ended up being radio man for the last 2 or 3 days that we were doing it. And there's a hole in the bottom of the Jeep like this big, and I had those Mickey Mouse boots on, but your feet don't stay warm if you're not moving.
They do
not. You're just sitting there, and we're like, we don't have time. We got, and we get done. There was one little incident where the closer you got to the border, the nicer the German people were. The farther away you got when you're in town in Schweinfurt, you had guys that want to start shit.
They're used to Americans.
Yeah.
But like when you get closer to where they need you, they like you a lot more.
We stopped at this one little town, and something was wrong with the radio, so we had to do a landline call. Stopped at a phone booth. They still had those back then, and we had to call in. And so one guy's calling in. Well, these little kids are coming over, and they're throwing snowballs at us.
Yeah.
So we get into this snowball fight with these little kids, and their father comes out, and he invites us in. And we end up having this great dinner with this family, and ends up he was the captain of the police for that town, the captain of the Polizei, and just really cool. And that's one thing I will always remember. And I have pictures from when that happened. And so we're going back, and it was a nice little end to our thing. And I think we still had maybe a day where we're stuck in the Jeep, and we're just having to go checkpoint to checkpoint and radio in. So we get there, and I'm just freezing in the back, and I was running the radio, and we get back in, and we have to do the debrief, and they come in, they say, anybody got any complaints? The medics there, and I said, my feet are killing me. My feet are cold. I'm freezing, and they get me in there, and they examine this. Boy, you've got frostbite. Okay, that was in '87. I come home on leave after that, and I'm at home. I come back to North Carolina, and then I go back, and as soon as I get back and check into battalion, they said, "You're going to Würzburg for a medical board." So it was like this was a full year later in '88.
So you had recovered at that point?
There was never any issue. They put me on
so it was like mild.
Or something.
It was like mild frostbite.
Yeah. And I mean, for me it was, but I think at the time there was Graham Rudman. They were doing budget cuts or whatever.
Got it.
So they were like looking for people to
looking
put
for a
out.
reason, and they picked you.
And
they were like, "This guy's a problem.
Yeah, we got.
Let's get him out of here."
Look at those cold tootsies.
Yes.
Before he becomes a giant problem.
I was not worldwide deployable. As an infantryman, you have to be able to go anywhere in the world at any time.
And so they were worried about cold climates for you.
So I couldn't. I thought about getting that tattooed on my ass because that was on every little document, not worldwide deployable. So I had my.
How does it feel to be not worldwide deployable?
Right now, it feels pretty damn good.
The poor bastards right now. They just announced that the IRR could get called up. I was like, ew.
Well, you see, when I went in, if you went in for 4 years, you weren't in the ready reserve when you got out.
Yeah.
So the suckers went in for 2 years. Yeah. Bet they didn't have that in their
Now
contract.
it's 8 years. It's 8.
Oh, that's crazy.
8 years of total. So if you do 6, you're on the IRR for 2. If you do 2, you're on the IRR for another 6.
It all evens out.
And why did they even do that? Because nobody wants to go in the Army right now. They gotta find the guys that were.
Well, I mean, it's a tough situation, right? Like, if you're a kid, and I say kid, I don't feel sorry about saying kid when I'm talking about 18 to 20 somethings, because they are, right? If you're a kid and you just watched us like bail on Afghanistan, bail on Iraq, constant politicking with the military, the trust in the military is at the lowest it's been since the 60s.
Yeah.
You think about that. I mean,
I don't even pretend to know, like the Afghanistan stuff. I don't keep up with current events. I just get little snippets, and I know as far as what I know about the withdrawal from Afghanistan is everything from send me and just knowing you guys and the shit you had to go through to help. But what gets me, and it could be the previous administration, the current administration, whatever. It doesn't matter. The shit you had to go through to even that you guys had to do that, because our government wouldn't or couldn't, and quite honestly, it looks like they just wouldn't because they didn't care.
The government can do anything it wants to.
Pretty much, yeah.
So I'll leave it at that. That being said, anytime you're talking about the government, you're really talking about a group of people. So we could not have done what we did without a group of people, to include Senator Tillis, to include Chairman Milley, to include a host of people from State Department that I can't name, to include the pararescuemen on the ground that opened doors for it. Like, there's a lot of people in government that allowed us to do what we did. There's also a lot of people in government that would have preferred that we didn't. Yeah. So and someday I'm sure I'll name names, but right now
that you did, though, I mean, it's just so cool. And we became acquainted because of the gun range.
Yep. Great gun range,
and
the best there is. There's a 4-year waiting period. Like,
it's down to 3 now.
I had to wait 4 years to get into this place. Right?
Is that true?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Took me 4 years.
3 years now, but
quite a bit.
And it was super random, because like I signed up for it, and I completely forgot that I had even signed up. And this phone number calls. And I'm like, I never answer the phone. I never answer the phone for people that, like, I don't know.
Not a sponsor.
But for some reason, I was like, I'm going to answer this. This looks this looks local, So I pick it up, and it's like, hey, and it might have even been you. I don't even know. But somebody called me and was like, hey, you need to tell us within 48 hours if you want to come to this class
To get introduced.
or you're being bumped down the list. And I'm like, yeah, I want in. Like, I had to like think about like 4 years I've been waiting. Then I get like 48 hours to make a call. And then it was like, then I got an email. It was like, pick what day you want to go. Pick the date, went for the course. And now I'm in. And I've been in for a while. I've been in for a while now. But it's the best range. Nobody.
It's so fun.
It's high quality, big boy rules. Nobody messes with you.
9 ranges, like several acres.
And
Range
since-
9 is actually officially my range. Like I believe I.
Are they going to rename it?
I believe I own.
It's no longer Range 9. It's Palmachano
It's the
Lane.
honorary Palmachano range.
I'm not going to say that some palms can't be greased.
There's nothing sadder than when I show.
There's a new president.
No, there's the old president, but I got elected in 2016 when I was elected. The club had 100, like right at 100 acres. Now I've been president, since 2016, and we've increased it to about 215 acres, and we're always looking for more land to increase our buffer. So, and I want to put some action pits in and things like that. So
Yeah,
we're trying.
It's an awesome range. Durham
pretty
pistol
fun.
and rifle. If you've got 4 years to wait, sign up.
DPRC.org. Get on the wait list.
But you can't go to range 9 because it's mine.
So you go to the board, and what happens?
I think we know what happens,
Yeah.
Hollywood.
Well, I did have my first sergeant, my CO, great guys, Benny Smalls. I think he was like 4'8", first sergeant. He spent most of his time in Korea. So when he would yell at you, he would yell at you in Korean and everything. So you just kind of got a kick out of it. Just you kind of wanted to make you mad.
Yeah.
But he went up to bat for me, and he got at that time Sergeant Major Tadina was our battalion sergeant major. Patrick Tadina, I think he passed away 2 years ago. I believe he was the most decorated non-commissioned officer in Vietnam.
Wow.
But you see pictures of him, and he's dressed up like the NBA with an AK. Sometimes he had a dog with him. Super great guy, and he actually was one that was on the board and actually stood up, and said, this is a highly motivated individual. We should keep him in, and but the rest of the guys who were doctors and everybody said, no, he's not worldwide deployable. So I came home, and that was the end of my army deal. So
Yeah.
I did enjoy it. I mean, I enjoyed. There was something about the discipline, part of it, and I think that everybody kind of gets that. And the sense of humor that, like Army grunts, the infantry.
Yeah.
I think our sense of humor is a little different than anybody else, but
No, it's messed up.
it's
It's
pretty
messed
fucked
up. It's not okay. And like as an adult now, like I know it's not okay, but it's still funny.
Still do
and you
it.
never get over it. Like
Yeah.
you're always like a little bit broken.
Unfortunately, my two daughters are that way. They have, because they're like, well, where we got it from. Because I'm like, that I can't believe you said that in front of somebody. And they're like, well, who taught us how to do that?
Blame yourself, father.
So it
So you come back and talk about transitioning to an entrepreneur. So how do you get? I mean, you had a big stereo installation, like security business. How do you get to that?
When I don't think we really had a transition. When I came home, it was we didn't get a flag or anything. They sent me to Fort Jackson. From Fort Jackson, I got on a bus and went back to Raleigh. And then
It's still the military still transitions people terribly.
It was like, okay, I'm done with that. Let's get on to something else.
The next thing.
So I tried to find a job working at a stereo shop, and they didn't need anybody. So I just said, okay, I'll start my own thing. So I went, and this was the
That's not normal though. That's not normal. It takes somebody a little weird to.
It takes,
especially you're in your 20s, right?
I would have been 20, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe maybe right at 21. It came from the fact that my mom, the whole time I was growing up, you know, I could have said, Mom, I want to be an astronaut, I want to be a fireman, and she always just said, you can do whatever you want to, but you'll have to work for it. As you can do whatever you want as long as you work for it. So I always remembered that, and I didn't think about shit. I had no fear, especially then when I started the stereo shop. So I came home. I didn't even know I was getting a monthly VA check. I had no idea that any of that stuff was going on. And I came home. I think I had $5,000 cash that they gave me, Fort Jackson. I came home. I gave it to my mom, and so I had like $80, and I went, and it was going to cost me $60 to get business cards printed up. So I went to the Pitt printing thing, and at that time, you know, you had to wait a couple of days.
Yeah,
you had to go back to the store.
Nothing's instant.
There was nothing.
No,
there was no
internet.
Instant.
Yeah.
And so I had it was called ear candy, and it was either that or eargasm, and I kind of thought eargasm was a little off.
Eargasm's probably a bit
Yeah,
much,
you never forget your first eargasm.
You know.
And so it was ear candy. And so I just started going places. I would go to Radio Shack, which used to be this big electronics store. Sold
Radio
all
Shack
kinds of
was
stuff.
the shit back in the day.
I'd give the salesman
or piece of electronics you needed.
Yeah, you had to go there.
Radio
yeah,
Shack had.
Tandy Co.
I had
Texas.
I had a Tandy 1000 SX. That was our first home computer.
What was it? TRS Pro or something that came out with. It was like,
Yeah.
I think at the time they sold more of those than IBM did or something.
But the Tandy 1000 SX was unique because it was a 16 color instead of a 4 color.
16-bit, that's right.
16 colors instead of 4 color.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was the precursor to EGA,
It was just so cool. All the Radio Shacks,
which
were
was the
cool.
precursor to VGA.
Veteran Golfers Association?
Yes.
I was a computer nerd back in the day, and my dad and I went to Radio Shack a lot to fix all kinds of.
Yeah, it was that. Just going to Radio Shack was an event, you know, because
Yeah.
they were at the mall or they had their little freestandings.
Yep.
But I would just go and I'd hand my business cards out to the salesman at Radio Shack. You know, here, hey, if you sell this, holler at me. And I went to the car dealerships and would say, hey, if you've got any cars that you need worked on, or you know, the stereo might not be working on them, let me take a shot. And they would call me or something, and I would get their car and I'd bring it down and park it in the parking lot of the apartments where we lived in Burlington, and I would work on it right there. And just, if somebody wanted a speaker box, subwoofer boxes were just becoming the thing then.
So you'd build
That's
them.
like 2 Live Crew was the big stuff. Google it. So I would be up in the bedroom. I'd go to Lowe's, and at this time Lowe's didn't cut your wood for you. You had to buy it and get it. So I had this particle board, and I'm up in my bedroom with a little skill saw that I borrowed from my uncle, and I was cutting the box out, and I'd build it and carpet it and everything in my bedroom, and then run it outside and put it in the car and do the amp install and tweak everything that way. And I had customers that had repeat customers to the apartment parking lot. And it just kind of took off from there, where it was all mainly just word of mouth. And my mom ended up buying, she bought a house. So, of course, you know, I wasn't married. So what the hell's the point in living by myself somewhere? She bought a house that had a bed and had three or 4 bedrooms. So I'm at one of them. It had a nice little carport, and I could do my work there. So there was used to be a big chain called Ed Kelly's, and so I went to them. I got a contract job with them handling their display boards for their car audio. So I would go in, new units would come in, I would put it in their displays, and then I was their installer. So if they got installs, I would do that. Cell phones, just hit. People were having cell phones installed in their car. I got the contract with Cellular One. So if you bought a Cellular One phone and you lived between Charlotte and I think east side of Raleigh, I was the installer that had to do it.
Oh, that's cool.
So it was kind of neat. And I got a free phone, and my wife still has that same phone number because I gave her that phone. But so it just kind of took off, and it finally got to where I was so busy.
Now, were you doing like high-end stereo installs too? Like,
yeah, I wasn't a dealer, but Ed Kelly's, at that time, they were an Alpine dealer, and Alpine was the shit back then.
For cars. For cars,
yeah. And, you know, there was an Alpine 7909, which was like the Mac Daddy competition CD player. And I'm sitting there looking at their inventory sheets, and I'm like, you guys got a 7909? And they're like, yeah, it's back there. You know, we just got all this stuff in. I'm like, oh, my God. So I'm like putting in the 7909. And sometimes people would come in, and I would be in there. So here I'm selling their stuff because I knew I would be putting it in. So I could quote them a price and all that. And it got to where at this time my mom she had started chemotherapy. So she was fired from work, which they did that shit back then too. She was let go. And she had been diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and I think this was her second year of chemo. And so she was at home, and Ed Kelly's would be calling. I had a little bag phone, you know, and they would be calling. We've got another one. It's okay. And I would tell my Mom, this car's done. Will you drive it back to Ed Kelly's? And they've got another car. Will you bring it back? She's like, yeah. So she would, you know, go get the car and bring it back. And I would knock that one out, and we'd both be back and forth. So I finally realized I needed to get, you know, a spot where I could do this stuff and have my tools and everything. So I did that. Worst part of the neighborhood in Burlington. And it was an old AT&T service area where the trucks would pull. And it was like they had little partial roofs over the AT&T repair trucks. And there was like a little detent where their front wheels would go, and they would all sit there and they all parked uniform. Well, somebody bought that property and enclosed it. So there's no heating in there or anything. So I had one of those bays.
One of the bays, yep.
I think it was like $150 a month.
Yeah.
And when it rained, water would come running through the little wheel chalk area, whatever it is. Just, you know, sitting there freezing. You got a little Mr. Heater in the wintertime. But I knocked it out. I think I did that for about 2 years. I was doing some work on a guy's car.
It's so funny how entrepreneurial stories are very similar. Like we essentially, we didn't have the running water through it, but like the first Ranger Up bay that we had was, it was essentially that. And the first night that we moved in, like my old COO, Tom Amenta, and I, the first night that we moved in, it was at the very end of Trinity Avenue in Durham, if you know where that is. A dude got murdered in the parking lot. I'm not even joking. Like we were so excited because we had moved our stuff out of like the apartment that Ranger Up was running out of for the first couple of years, you know. And it was like, all right, we finally have a place. We set it up, and Tom and I are just sitting there, and we're having a glass of bourbon to celebrate. You know, it was like 9, 10 o'clock at night to celebrate. Like, hey, we're real entrepreneurs now, and you know, we hear gunshots. And, you know, we're ex-military, and we're like, those are gunshots. So like we're like, you know, like looking out the door, and you know, I see out of my right eye motion. We look over to the right, and it's this guy, Rob Robertson, who's a mechanic, and who was in the bay next door, and he's like, you know, looking out the door, and like you look down, and you just see all these hardworking entrepreneurs that have been in Durham a while. Yeah. Everyone's got a gun. We're all looking out, and there's a dude in the parking lot, like who's down, ended up dying. And that was like night one of like,
That's crazy.
I'm a real entrepreneur now. Like,
Excellent.
You know, because you can't afford a nice place at the beginning.
No,
You're like,
not at all. You gotta take it. And there was where it was at. There was a nightclub in this area, and it was predominantly African American. And I was working on a vehicle, and it was probably 9 or 10 o'clock, and where I was parked, the complex was gated.
yep.
So I was parked outside at this time, and I went out. Well, all of the people that had came to the nightclub, and it's like a 1-lane street. They're right across the street, and you could hear the music. They're partying and everything, and they had blocked me in because they just parked wherever they wanted to, and so I'm like, fuck. And I knew whoever it was in the nightclub. So I go in there, you know, I'm the whitest dude in there, and everybody's jamming. They're just, you know, just having a hell of a time. And the guy who's the bouncer, you know, comes over and says, "What's up, Jim?" You know, I put a radio in his car or something. I was like, "Hey, man, I'm trying to go home. Some motherfucker got me blocked." And he was like, "Hold on a minute, Jim." He goes over to the DJ booth, cuts the DJ sound off, and said, "Which one of you motherfuckers is parked behind my man Jim? Get out there and get your damn car out the way. He got to go." So it was like everybody was like, "Oh my God!" They're all reaching to go out there, but that's just the way it was. And,
Yeah.
And so had done some work for a gentleman that owned a building a few blocks down that was on the main drag, and he said that spot's come open. He said if you'd like to rent it, he said it'll run you about $350 a month. I was like, okay, you know, I sitting there, I was like, I think I could do that. So, because you know everything came out of my pocket.
Oh, I know.
I didn't have stock.
Yeah.
Somebody wanted something. I did
You had
have
to go buy it,
relationships with some vendors, so I could order like Kenwood. I could still get Alpine from Kelly's because I was still doing their stuff.
Now, was it mostly cars? Did you
Mostly cars.
Did you do house stuff too?
Hadn't started on house stuff. House stuff was what I wanted to do, but I think car at the time was more popular.
It was hot.
and
it was hot at the
just
time.
getting into it.
Yeah, yeah.
So we got over to this the new spot, and it was an old Oldsmobile dealership. It used to be called the Rocket Corner, and it was separated. But the part that I got for $350, it was like
A corner of it.
10,000 square foot. It had this cool
That's
front
big.
Art Deco. Oh yeah,
That's big.
we could go in there and like have a little racetrack inside.
Yeah.
Doing stuff. And so the lease just said designated area.
That's a lot
And,
of space,
yeah,
though. For
oh,
that.
it was.
So you'd
awesome.
pull the cars right in.
Yeah, we pulled the cars
Yeah,
in.
yeah, yeah.
This kid from the one of the high schools came in, and he said, "Are you hiring?" Because he said, "I really like building boxes, and I want to learn about stereo." I was like, "Okay." And I said, "I tell you what," I said, "I'll give you $20 for every car you do." And he's like, "Okay." So he was coming in there. He'd get out of school sometimes earlier because he had like a lot of shop classes, and what he did at work counted for credit. So he's in there. That little kid was so good, and I still talk to him every once in a while. Still see him. He was 16 at the time, and he had a Volkswagen Beetle, Bug, not a Beetle, Bug, and he had this idea that he wanted to put like 60 8-inch drivers in, and it looked like this Oppenheimer type deal. And he worked on that thing. It was a little side project. He had it over in the corner of the shop, and he was cutting panels and putting them together and gluing and stapling. And he finally got that thing going. And I think it rocked for a little while, but something with I think he didn't have the impedance right on some of the sets or something. But it was just so cool because you see that same passion. He wasn't that younger than I was. In that same passion.
Yep.
But I eventually had I had four more guys, and every time they would work, you know, I said, if you touch a car, it's $20. So, and I said, but if that car comes back because you fucked it up, you don't get shit. You got to fix it. So they were like, okay, we're cool with that. Well, and I paid them cash at the end of the week, and they all kept up with what they did, and we were rolling. It was great. And then by that time, I had companies actually coming to us wanting us to sell their stuff, and it just took off from there. And I moved from that spot to there was a at
So
that time
10,000 square feet wasn't enough.
well, no, it was actually more than what we needed. There was a machine shop next to us that had about 3,000 or 4,000 square foot, same building, but it just been separated. They needed to expand, so the landlord comes and says, "Hey Jim, the space you got's a little more than what you're paying for it." And I was like, "I understand." I said, "What you want to do?" He said, "I want you and Larry to swap." I was like, "Okay." But they got to clean that shit up because there's oil and gas all over that. And he said, "We got you." So they cleaned it up. I think we went to, they used to have mobile electronics shows. I think that one was in Atlanta. So we all flew to Atlanta and went to the electronics show over the weekend. Then when we got back, it was time we had to move everything over, and the machine shop moved all their stuff over.
So when you were doing all this, did you have your car like all spruced up? Did you have like a kick-ass stereo, or were you like basic?
No, I had some stuff. It was
What
84.
What were you running?
At that time, it would have been, I can't remember it wasn't a 7909, maybe a 7902 or something like that, Alpine. But here's the thing, it was an 84 Camaro Berlinetta. Had the 305 in it with the 373 gears. It just wasn't a Z28, it didn't have the Z28.
Yeah.
But the Berlinetta was all digital dash, and it had a stalk in the middle that was your radio. So it was like this, 4-inch by 2-inch deep. You could put a cassette in the bottom of it. So the thing was trying to figure out how to get a regular stereo hooked up to that shit. So we got that. I had, at the time, I became a Volcano speaker dealer, and they were great. They had some great stuff. They were out of, I think they were out of Kentucky. A lot of stuff back then was all U.S. made, and if it was U.S. made, it pretty much rocked.
Most importantly, what are you blasting on that? What music are you blasting on that? Most common song?
Then,
yeah,
probably would have been some Michael Jackson.
Okay.
Bad.
I didn't think you were. That's not what I thought.
Well, no.
I thought we were going to hear, Def Leppard,
yeah, some Guns N' Roses,
Metallica.
Yeah. He's like, I was really into Michael Jackson at the time.
For demo.
Once I got back from war in Germany.
When he told us about his ABCs, it was easy as 1, 2, 3 for me.
I was a headbanger, so Judas Priest. But
he's trying to walk it back now. He's trying to walk it back.
No,
I'm not even letting you go White
stereo,
Snake, man.
I played it.
Just pot him down, Tom.
Just mute him.
So this business at its peak, what was it? What were you doing? What were you working on?
At the peak.
At the peak,
we had
the whole business. The whole business. Yeah.
As far as what we were doing, how much I was making.
So you no, I don't mean how much you were making, but what were you doing? So you start off with you're fixing a car stereo, then now you have a bay, then you
got to where I had at the time. I think we had about 16. I had 16 guys working for me.
Wow.
Which at this time they were drawing. It was paychecks. Now we weren't just paying them.
It's too bad, huh?
Yeah. I had some great guys. One guy. He could sell ice to an Eskimo. I mean, he would upsell and accessory sell everybody. And just we had ads in the phone book, and at that time, that was the thing. You had to have ads in the phone book.
Yep.
And I know our ad bill, it was like $4 or $5 grand a month. And if I finally was like, that's fucking stupid. I can, do something else with that money than put in the phone book. But back then, that's what you had to do.
Back then, that was, phone book was
somebody's going to thumb through that book. There was no Google. And so then you started seeing Ed Kelly's started opening up more locations. They got into stereo. They started an offshoot company called Car Toys. So I wasn't their installer anymore. they used their own people, and
vertical integration.
Circuit City blew up.
Yep.
Best Buy started.
Circuit City's dead now, right?
Yeah.
That's crazy because that was like
Oh yeah,
when Circuit City showed up on the scene, it basically killed Radio Shack. It killed, not killed, but I mean it.
Yeah,
it did damage to
it
Radio
certainly
Shack.
Changed what they sold and where their emphasis was.
And then Best Buy showed up and kicked their ass.
Yeah, and we used to run a thing. Every Christmas I would have these signs done up, and we would always go put them in front of Best Buy in the little median dirt, and it was "We Fix Free Installs," and it would have our name and telephone number. And the local Best Buy, one of the kids that worked for us, his best friend worked at Best Buy, and he said, "Dude," he said, like the management had one of your signs in on the conference table, talking about how we need to stop this, and I was like, I don't have a problem with that. I don't give a shit. They need to give me my sign back and put it back where it was or something. But the only complaint I ever had in 34 years, I still have 2 clients. I was just at one this morning handling their surveillance stuff.
Is that why you didn't bring any oatmeal cookies?
Yes. That's
So you still do some of this work?
A little bit. I don't do any car stuff because I just can't. I don't have my tools available without having to go through storage and get them. But home stuff, I have a friend who I used to contract stuff to him, and now he's doing it all the time. He retired from the Navy. John, he did your stuff here. He's doing it full time now, and I shift stuff to him. Then, like, if he needs help, he'll holler at me.
You'll help out. So you like to keep your finger on the pulse, but I'm
still interested. It got to where you had customers come in, and it's like their entire mission in life was to suck the fun out of everything you're doing.
Oh, yeah.
And the whole reason I did it was because I love doing it.
Yeah. Great customers inspire you. Bad customers suck your will to live.
So I started a different way of doing it where I had consistent repeat customers that normally they didn't come into the store. They called me.
Yep.
Hey, I want to do this. Okay, we'll take care of it. I didn't need the showroom. So I said, we're going to just shut the showroom down. We'll do everything by email. They can go to the website, and it'll explain everything. If you want to do something, you email us what you want done. If we choose to do it, we will let you know, and we'll give you a quote.
And at this point, we're not talking home stereo.
Home
theater.
Home theater.
So did you guys build out at this point, or do you build home theaters?
Yes. We went to around right at 2002. I had gone to a convention, and I was coming back. It was January, and I had at this time I had just closed the store because it was right after Christmas. We had a bunch of stuff that we did, but I mean we worked 24/7 right around Christmas time.
Oh yeah,
it's always remote starts and a stereo and 2 speakers or something. So I always knew when the convention time came, I said, okay, that's good. That's like 5 days. We can go to the electronic show in Vegas and see that, or they can take a vacation, whatever they want to do.
Yep.
So we would everybody elected they wanted to go to Vegas, and we would go, and that was our break. And I just remember coming back, and we were coming back from the airport. I drove by this spot that was on the other end of town where everything had moved to by then, and it was available. So I was like, okay. So I called the landlord, and he comes down to the old store. We worked the deal up, and at that time I only had one kid working for me. And I told him, I said, we're going to be moving to the other end of town, and he started to put demands on me. He said, well, I'm going to want this much more, and you're going to pay me this much, and I kind of want this. I was like, no, fuck you. I'll just go and do it. So I was still working at the old store, and during the day I would go, I would close up at lunch, go to the new place, get the ceiling out of the way, start painting, putting the flooring in and everything. And I always put a sign on the old store, hey, this is where I'm at. Here's my number. If you need something, call me. And slowly people would start transitioning. Even before we opened, they were coming up there. And so I had steady business. And this one kid who, he was a customer, and he would always bug me, when are you going to hire me? When are you going to hire me? And just, I don't need anybody. And so I got to the new store, had it open and going, and I was still just one man in it at the time, and I was frazzled. We had 3 bays. There was 2 cars at each bay, and then there was a couple in the parking lot, and I just was sitting there all night. And I think I needed like a Makita drill battery or something. So I went to Sears that was still open, and that kid worked in there. And I was getting a Makita battery, and he said, so when you going to hire me? I said, right now, you want to come? And he's like, it took him like a couple seconds. He was like, yeah. And so he rung up the battery and everything, and he turned around, and this boss was over behind him. He said, I quit. And he came on over, and so he worked for me for 12 years.
Wow.
Just like Jerry Maguire.
Yeah.
Who's coming with me?
Who's coming with me?
He's actually, he started his own thing, and he's actually in my old spot.
Oh, cool.
On North Church.
Very cool.
So I was still doing it, still had the shop. After Brian left, I was still doing it. Had another kid. He did a bunch of high-end stuff. He was going all over the country doing stuff for this big chain high-end place.
So do you have a nice setup at home? Like, do you run like a nice setup at home?
I had a nice, flat screen and a 7.1 surround.
Yep.
But by the time I got home, it's time for bed, so we're just going to bed. I never really. It's like I don't have a coffee maker at home either.
Yeah.
I do, but it's put up.
So like I used to be an audiophile. Like I had like a real nice setup in the house, and then I had kids.
Yeah.
It was like,
Yeah.
But I actually want to get back to that again. So like at my peak, I was running B&K separates.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember them.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're still around, but they were pretty awesome back in the day.
I think they are.
So I was running B&K separates, and I was I had definitive audio.
Yep.
All the way around. I know they're still around. I don't know if they're still good, but at the time,
I think it's Definitive Technologies.
Yeah, Definitive
now.
Technology. Yep.
Yeah, and they're owned by Directed Electronics, which did the Viper alarms and all that stuff.
Yep.
It's all China.
Are they still? Oh, it's all China
All
now.
China.
Who's good now?
B&W, Bowers and Wilkins. It's hard to remember because I don't keep up. I did get some nice Klipsch speakers that are where I roast coffee at.
Yeah.
And they bang.
Klipsch has always been good. I had some Klipsch for a while.
Yeah.
But the Definitives crushed them back in the day.
Yeah.
I mean, they really. But there also is a different price point.
Yeah.
But that was when I was a single man and didn't have a care in the world, and
I had a turntable, but I didn't really use it much in the 90s because nobody did.
used it. Yeah. But for me it definitely was about music, but it was more about movies. Like so like my test anytime I was testing equipment, I thought the music CD I liked to test was the Eagles when they came out with the remastered set. If you remember that,
because they came out and it was in DTS audio.
That's
DTS
right.
audio
yes,
too.
Sir.
So
yes, sir.
5.1 audio.
So
surround.
that's why I used that. I used that for testing audio, and then for sound, I used Blade and Top Gun. Blade because it opened heavy with that club scene.
Yeah.
But also
blood
there was the breaking glass and all that. So the treble would get isolated.
Yeah.
And then Top Gun just because the plane's taking off. Like
It,
if the room felt like the plane was there, then it was doing its job. And if it didn't,
I think my main for sound, I would in a car. I always put Bob Dylan Infidels. I think it was Infidels. Whichever one had Joker Man on it, because there was something about Joker Man that I could listen to it, and I'd have to put it on repeat. And when we did a car, you would sit in the car, and you always wanted the music to sound like you were at the stage, and you could hear the guitar player, the singer moving from one side to the other.
Yes.
So you close your eyes and you sit there and you listen to it. And Joker Man wasn't a live one, but there was just something about when he started singing in that first intro where the drums hit, and it goes from one side to the other. And I would just sit there and just kept hitting it, started over, and it just worked.
Yep.
And everybody thought I was weird. They're like, why are you listening? I said, I don't know just how I do it. But at that time, we were fortunate. There's a gentleman, Richard Clark, who is, I think he's one of the top 100 audio engineers of all time. He's actually in the book, and he's from Burlington. Now he does Grand Nationals. That's all he does, Buick Grand Nationals. But at the time, he had started Auto Sound 2000, stiffening capacitors, the big things. Well, he started all that, using them for cars. And he his company came out with some test discs, and they would go, like, they had some really high-end recorders.
I remember.
He went to Indy and was recording the cars coming through, and the notes would tell you, okay, you're going to be approaching this pit, and you're going to hear these guys talking over here in this left channel.
Do you think, so my feeling is that once we went to streaming, sound quality went down.
I don't think I think what caused sound quality to go down is the iPod, because it was earphones, and nobody gave a shit about sound quality after that. It was always, can you figure out a way to get my iPod hooked into my stereo? And it's like, so I guess streaming probably because it was the compression thing.
Yeah.
And then I think Apple came out with lossless or whatever it was. Still sounded like dog shit compared to a good CD.
It's not as good as a CD. Yeah, it's not. It just isn't.
And even a record, a CD doesn't have the warmth of a record.
Yep.
But I mean, they're getting pretty close now. With everything's improved.
It has improved, but it like I do miss it. Like, my kids are now old enough.
Yeah.
Because, I remember when I had toddlers and they're like grubby hands and they're like rubbing them on the mesh of the definitive technology speaker, and like you can't be mad at the kid. And I wasn't, but at the same time you're dying inside. You're like, oh God, no. that's $3,500.
Yeah. It's so cool. We had I did probably more high-end cars than high-end audio. Money-wise, I did a lot of houses where we did whole house sound, where it was everywhere. And one of my clients I still have now, every time he buys a property, I always know
he's going to call
speakers everywhere. He wants TVs, and he wants it just loud as shit wherever he's at. So
that's cool.
It's pretty neat. Yeah,
that's cool. It's on the list. So my wife and I love movies. Me especially. And at some point we want to do a room up in the house that is like for us and not for, so that's,
at the coffee shop where the couches are was our home theater, our demo room, and it was 7.1 surround. We had True Audio, Veritas, on the sides and rear, and I think we were using Dynaudios up front.
Do you think in-wall speakers can compare to standalone towers?
Yeah. So depending on what it is, the last home theater I did, there was a true home theater. We used Atlantic Technologies, and it was a THX.
They do a nice job.
I think it was.
They do a nice job.
It was a 9.1, and I the last thing I did was when they came in, they had a decorator come in, and I think I don't know what she was doing, but she came in and she put the grills back up on the speakers. Mm-hmm. Well, the theater's dark. Nobody is going to hit those speakers where they're at, and I'm coming in to do my maintenance thing on it, and the first thing I do is pull those grills off because you got to see the speakers. They're beautiful.
Gorgeous. Yeah.
And
Are they the ones with the gold on it?
These are all, I can't remember them all because it's been 12 years since we did this. All black, but it's the THX. They're about this big. The side channels are about this big, and they're dipoles, so you got one firing this way, set firing this way, set firing this way, and in the back had the same, and then the rear center, two 15-inch subs. The room's not that big where the home theater is. Speaker was the screen's acoustically transparent, so we had the same set in the center channel behind the screen, and it just killed it. You put Gladiator, the Unleashed Hell part where it's just so cool. Or
all right, we got to fast
Master and
forward.
Commander.
We got to fast forward because
Let's do it.
So you leave all that and start, not leave it because you still have one toe in the door, but Salvation Coffee. How do you go from electronics to Salvation Coffee?
Well, I'd acquired my taste for coffee in Germany. You had weekends off if you weren't out in the field or training or something, and you go down and it's the stereotypical European town. Everybody's at the little bakery. They're sipping their espresso or their cappuccino out of their little cups. And I always wondered, so I experienced espresso and cappuccino there. And I had one of the things I'd always wanted to do, I thought it'd be cool to have like a jazz bar or something like that. So, we would serve liquor at night, and in the mornings we would just have like cool jazz and coffee, people poetry read or some shit like that. Well, that never came to be or anything, and
there's still time.
The part
Burlington needs a jazz bar / poetry shop.
We were at the stereo shop, and I had closed off the front where we didn't take walk-ins or anything. We still had the back, and it was just I just happened to be up front for something, and the door was open. Somebody comes in, and it's some little kid. They ask you a question, and I don't mind somebody coming in and asking me a question. And I answer it as best I could. It was like something about, do you think this amp will be good in here and here? And when you answer it, they want to argue with you. It's like, oh, you didn't come in to ask me a question. You just came in to argue. So I was like, I can't do anything for you. And so I chased him out of the store and locked up. And it was right then I was like, I do not enjoy doing this shit anymore. I do not like it.
Yep.
And so I wanted some little side hustle to maybe take my mind off of that where I would still be able to keep doing it because I was making money. I enjoyed it sometimes.
You enjoyed parts of it. Yeah. I get it.
And so I thought, I liked coffee, and I always had coffee every morning, and so I wanted to look into roasting beans, and there was a local roaster, and I went and talked to him, and I saw his little machine and everything, and I started looking it up, and I was like, well, the machine's not that expensive. And so I thought, well, maybe I can do this. So I would buy green beans, and I would, I did a little homework checking what were some good beans to buy, and I asked this guy to roast them for me. And he roasted them, and I told him how I thought I wanted them roasted, and with what little knowledge I knew about roasting coffee beans. And I called Roastar, which is the company that makes the bags and stuff, ordered like a case of the bags, whatever their minimum order was. It was $1,500, and had the bags. So I'm at the house, had this coffee this guy had roasted for me, and I'm putting it in the bags, had labels printed with the name of the coffee. This was the Speed Freak, which we still have at the shop. And I was giving it to people, and they liked it, and they were like, hey, Jim, can we get some more of that coffee? And it's like, sure. So I thought, maybe I could do this. So I wanted to get a roaster and start roasting my own. I asked the guy that had roasted them for me, hey, I'm going to try and sell this online. Would you roast some more for me? He's like, no, I don't think I'm going to do that. I said, okay, fine. So I'm at the shop. I'm looking around the front area, and I'm like, I could put a roaster in here, but what if I wanted people to come and sample our roast? And I could brew some coffee for them. What would I need to do? So I called the city. If I wanted to do this, what would I have to do? They said, you've got to put in a bathroom up front. And I was like, well, that plumbing is the most expensive damn thing you'd have to do.
Sure.
So I went home and told my wife, I said, we're going to open up a coffee shop at the front of the store. She's like, okay. So I just started doing it. And that was either November or December of 2017. And January 1st of 2018, I filed the incorporation, the LLC, all that, and started the trademark for the name and everything, and just started hustling on getting that front room done while I was still doing work in the back for customers, and it just kind of took off. And I had no idea about coffee. I just started reading everything I could. At this time, you have Google now. And just started Googling. But I've never been like, well, I've went to a class on that. I know how to do that. You never know until you've got your hands on it. You're doing it.
You got to do it. But for those of you that don't know, right, which is probably almost every one of you, Jim makes some real gourmet shit. Like, it is very good coffee. Everything about it is like artisan level. And the cool thing I think about Salvation Coffee is when you walk in there, you realize that everything just about in the shop is salvaged. So he's fixed it. He's bought it, fixed it. Anything from like the art on the walls, some of it is like salvaged from like sports arenas, and
he's got the scoreboard.
There's really cool stuff in there, and it's got a good vibe. But you're right though. Until you do something, like you can think you know.
Yeah.
You can
read all about it.
You can read about it. You can watch videos. You can do, but like when you're actually doing the thing, it's very different.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that is lost, especially with schooling. Like, I have an MBA. My MBA did jack shit for any of my entrepreneurial endeavors. Like literally no value other than back when banks could actually make decisions on their own without following every rule. The fact that I had an MBA from Duke basically got me to yes on my first business loan.
Yeah, it's just you can plan and plan and plan and plan, and before you know it, you've spent your entire time that you could have been working on this thing, physically working on it, and Joe Dickhead down the road's already beat your ass to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, what the hell am I going to do now?
Yeah. What am I going to do? Yeah.
It goes back to Marine Mom. She never, you just got to work for it.
Yeah. You got to work for it, and it's not going to be fair.
No.
With Ranger Up, one of the things that like it used to drive me nuts at first, and then I just accepted it. We would come out, 'cause we were the first on the scene. We had about 2 years before Grunt Style showed up, and then a few more years before a lot of people started showing up. Mm-hmm. Well, so like we'd come out with a new, like a concept no one else had. It would start doing well, and then everyone would have that. Everyone would copy it, you know. And it's like at first, I used to reach out to business owners and kind of argue it, and And then it's like, wait, like at some point you just realize like you're not suing them. Yeah. I don't even know what you're, like. Trademark, copyright, it's all very nebulous. Trademark is pretty clear, but copyright is very nebulous. You're not, So, like, you just have to accept the fact that the idea that you have, the IP that you create is going to be good for a few weeks, a few months. Yeah. And then someone's going to copy it almost exactly, and that's
especially
the
if you tell everybody about it before you do it.
Oh, before you do it, you're screwed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever you're doing, keep it quiet until you're doing it.
Yeah, I will say the business gym is kind of an asshole, but there was
More of an asshole than the regular gym?
Yeah.
Damn.
The dude that was roasting my coffee for me when I first decided to get into it, they had announced that they were opening up a shop, which was going to be right across the street from us. And I'd already started working, but I hadn't said anything. I just started doing it. And so I saw their big announcement. I was like, oh, okay. I know when I need to be open, which is before him. And also, did this guy happen to get a website with his shop name, and does he own that URL or anything? Well, no, he doesn't. So if you type in his name, it goes right to my website. So, I am an asshole, but hey, you don't ever tell somebody what your name of your company is going to be or your product before you've locked that
Jim
shit
the
down.
That's
Conqueror.
cold, Jim.
I don't
That's
care.
That's cold.
I don't
That
care.
that is some Gordon Gecko shit. I'm not telling Jim shit. Hey, don't tell him about any of our projects. This guy might get in the movie making business.
No.
It's as cold as your cold brew, Jim.
So that, so we did get open before them.
Yeah.
Did they open?
They did. Yeah, they're still open. I think they've changed owners.
Oh, well,
maybe
that's okay.
twice.
So you have the competition right across the street?
Competition right across.
I haven't even seen them, and I've been to your
No,
shop.
Salvation Coffee is very good.
There's a difference because I think we're kind of the anti cafe, because you don't, when you come in, it's not drop ceiling, all white like a dentist office, and you've got this light wood finish everywhere.
No, it's a cool vibe.
It's
almost
just dark.
to me. It almost has like a 50s diner vibe. I know that would bother you, but that's kind of the vibe.
It is kind of hard to say what it is, but
Yeah.
everybody seems to like it.
No, it's a cool vibe.
and it attracts
Yeah,
cool people.
like Thomas Aquinas Hunt,
Yeah.
who goes there all the time, and your staff seems to love.
It feels like a workshop a little more, because things it's like, it's very nice, like, oh, these tables are nice, and then you look closer and you're like, oh, they're actually made of like actual
they're
rough
real wood,
materials,
they
and it's
actually
real
weigh a
wood.
ton.
Yeah.
Where did you get the baseball scoreboard?
Stole it from a baseball stadium. He heard a baseball stadium was being built. Was being built, and while they were building it, he snuck in and stole it.
I'm still waiting
close.
for you to do the
other
other.
perspective on you now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trying to destroy.
Sorry, man. Sorry.
I still want you to buy another space and call it Damnation Bar.
Okay.
The Salvation Coffee and Damnation Bar.
But
Just
we
do a franchise.
That's actually pretty good.
the scoreboards were from the prior, from my stereo stuff, where we got into the Salvation part was actually what we were going to call our. I was building furniture, and so we were like, okay, maybe we could do a little furniture company. So I started. It was going to be called the Salvation Company, and my client at the time, I was building we built a ping pong table for him, and then he,
Which
had
in
a
Chinese is ping pong.
ping pong, and so we got. He ended up buying an airplane and got a hangar, and he wanted all this stuff put in the hangar, and he wanted a pool table. So I said, okay, great, I'll build you a pool table. So after I say I'll build you a
How
pool
many
table,
pieces of slate did you use?
I think this is two.
Two. Well, that's
I think
pretty
it
good.
was a two-piece.
It's pretty good.
Because the trick is you buy an existing pool table and then you just take it apart.
Yeah.
So I built the pool table. It's NC State red felt, and then the body looks like it's made from airplane parts. It's all aluminum.
Oh, that's cool.
That I formed, and I riveted everything together. And the bar at Salvation is made from the rivets. At the time, I was going to do aluminum, but the aluminum looked like shit. So I called my buddy Tim. Hey, I need some copper, and he has a salvage yard. So when we're down there getting the copper, we're standing on this stuff, and it kept wobbling. I looked down, and it's like a scoreboard. And I said, Tim, what do you want for the scoreboard? And he said, put a radio in my truck. So I put a radio in his truck for this big ass scoreboard. And when we moved the big scoreboard, the little scoreboard was under it. And he said, go and take it too. So I got him. The little scoreboard is what's above the bar now, and I lit it up to where it says coffee. The big one will go into a second location probably if we ever decide to do that. It's got to be right.
Yeah.
I'm not. We were real busy when we first opened, and it was great. But I'm not the type to say, "Oh my God, this is going gangbuster. We need to open 6 more all over the place."
Yeah.
Because it'll be away from us. We're not going to have it 2 blocks down because we're just taking money out of our own pocket.
Yep.
And I'm still learning about coffee every day. I wish I had started it before, because with the stereo stuff, if I made somebody mad with ear candy, I didn't give a shit. I was like, we'll go somewhere else and have them do it. I'll see you later on when you want somebody to fix it. And I could have that attitude because we were good at what we did.
Yeah.
And my only complaint was I was too expensive, and I was happy with that. With the coffee thing, it's more social. The people you meet, so many interesting people with the coffee shop, and it's so cool, and just the love is there, and you can tell people are having a good time. The people that work for us are having a great time. We cook for them. Sunday, Carrie comes in. She cooks for all of them on Sundays. So you got these young kids fighting over who works on Sundays so they can get fed and everything.
No,
it's
it's a great place. It's a great vibe. Congratulations on all your success, even if it came at the head of the people that you chopped off across the street.
I think they call it imposter syndrome, where it's I don't think I've done anything, or I'm just waiting, like I'm a fraud or something like that. It's just weird because I've had a little bit of college. I've had some chemistry and stuff. Nothing related to what I do, but
so this is
just weird.
I really believe this. People that are afraid to try things because they don't know enough. No one knows enough.
Yeah.
No one knows what they're doing. Everybody just has good guesses, and they've learned a few things, and but when we say yes to jobs sometimes, we don't, when we're starting, we don't exactly know how we're going to do it. We always figure it out.
Yeah.
But
and you're not going to let the client know. The client's getting 100% of yes, we can do that.
Well, you see, in Hollywood movies, the big movies, not the ones that cost cajillions of dollars.
Yeah.
Every single time that they have a movie like that, there is something that the camera guys or the sound guys need to figure out that has never been done before. So I was watching, it's like the Fast and the Furious scene where the camera goes through all of the windows as they're up at the line.
Yeah.
Well, how did they do that? There isn't a camera, it isn't a dude crawling through.
It's a drone.
No, they built they built a dolly.
Oh, really?
And they put a camera on a long piece of metal, that had
just sent it through.
But the metal had to be such that it wouldn't vibrate, so it had to be extremely stiff metal, and then they just send it through. And the actors had to as the camera hit here, they had to turn their head as it got to
go.
So
That's cool
they
as
had
shit.
a mark that when the camera hit here, they turned their head so it could.
Yeah, that's cool.
But somebody had to figure that. It had never been done before.
Yeah.
But if the director's
That's really
I
neat.
want this shot, then talented people need to figure it out. So there's always,
you can, fear. When I started ear candy, I didn't have a fear. I had no idea what I was getting into.
Yeah,
I didn't know.
Yeah, that was just youthful
and
ignorance.
It was just stupid luck that the car audio started booming.
But I bet you thought more about the coffee shop.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's because you see, there's a company. There's one here in Raleigh, Stockton Graham, and they help people open up coffee shops. They stock them and they roast their coffee and all that stuff. And there was another one in Greensboro called Fortuna, and Fortuna does everything from the ground up. They'll build the furniture, they'll design the shop, whatever you want. You just provide the space, and of course you got to pay them to do all this. And everything that was at the shop, it was all used. I got it from an auction. I knew how to work on shit, and if I didn't, I would take it apart and figure it out. I just don't. A lot of people aren't like that, and I don't. It's hard for me to understand. And my daughters are. They have became that way. Where my youngest daughter, her seat screwed up in her Volvo, and she's like, my seat quit working, and I found out that the part to fix it is like this much on eBay, or I can go to
the dealer,
JKQ salvage, and I can just buy a whole nother seat for this. And I was like, I had to step back, and I was like, she gets it. She gets it.
Cool.
So, and I was like, well, that's whatever you want to do, baby girl. If you need help, I'll help you. But people aren't. They're not like that anymore.
They're not like that anymore.
People don't want to know how things work. They just want to make sure that
crazy.
it works.
Well, I mean, as a kid growing up, like, if one of the cars broke down, my dad, would be like, hey, come with me. We'd take the other car.
Yeah.
We'd go to a salvage yard, and, like, I don't know how many times we weren't, like, digging for alternators. Yeah. Or like whatever it was that the car needed, and like, and my dad would be buying these parts for, $5, $10 or whatever, whereas they would have been $100. And it's like, and then he's doing the work, and I'm under the car with him doing the, helping, like
Holding that light.
holding
that
light.
3/4 inch.
Yeah,
open end.
yeah, hand that. No, not that one.
That's a socket.
Yeah.
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 My dad said that a million times.
Yeah, but that was, so same thing with, like, I mean, my dad did all the electrical in our house. My dad did the plumbing in our house, and like sheetrock, taking out the old horsehair plaster and putting in sheetrock, these are things this is how I grew up. And so it's funny because I can still do these things. Like, I can work on a car, I can work on a house, I can, I don't do it as much anymore because I don't have time. It's not my preference.
Yeah.
But
And if you can afford to pay somebody to do it, pay somebody to do it.
yeah,
But,
yeah.
because sometimes it's like, yeah, I can fix it, but I don't want to. I don't have.
Well, I do the math in my head. I look at it because no job ever goes smooth. I don't care what it is. You can think it's the same. Oh, this is easy. This will take me an hour. I've never had
6
a project.
hours later.
I've never had a project take the hour that I thought.
Warrior Rising is the preeminent veteran entrepreneurship charity on planet Earth, the Milky Way, and Andromeda. Warrior Rising provides education, mentorship, and resources to veteran entrepreneurs willing to work for it. Each week, Warrior Rising selects one veteranpreneur to feature on our program. So here we go. 4 special operations veterans had a vision for a brand of whiskey and vodka made completely in the United States, using American ingredients from the breadbasket of our great nation and American craftsmanship distilled by the legendary team at Cedar Ridge Distillery. And that's where Cold Zero Spirits was born. The whiskey is a unique bourbon and rye blend that makes for an outstanding sipping whiskey, old-fashioned base, or a crisp Sazerac. The vodka is quintuple distilled for the purest, cleanest vodka flavor you'll encounter anywhere. Try Cold Zero at coldzerospirits.com. That's coldzerospirits.com. Cold Zero. It's your first shot.
All right.
Okay.
We got to wrap this up because we've been going for a long period. I know, Hollywood.
Don't forget that.
You get a very short period of time to tell us how you went from coffee maker
Just coffee.
to baker.
Well, we had a local bakery. We were sourcing our baked goods, scones, and just savory and sweet stuff from a local bakery it was a Marine and his wife. So we had the veteran tie in with that. We did that for about 2 years, and the gentleman, he had started a church up in the mountains. The church took off, so they came and said, we're trying to sell the bakery because we're going to be moving to the mountains. So far, everybody that's been interested, it's fell through. And I said, what do you want for the bakery? And so they told me, I said, okay, we'll take the bakery. And I went, just like the coffee shop, except Carrie was in the back. And I went in the back, and I said, we're buying the bakery. And she said, okay. So she took the bakery.
So she runs the bakery.
She runs the bakery. We just went. They lived over in Elon. They had converted their garage to a commercial kitchen. We went over. We got all the equipment and just moved it over, and still stayed under that the agriculture deal with the food, and we can't like make hot meals or anything like that. Maybe later on, but not now. So we started, and at that time we had the bakery had a coffee shop in Elon at the university, one in Mebane, and then a little restaurant a couple miles down the street from the coffee shop. We kept those, and we were still supplying, and we thought, because we were kind of a competitor with them, that we would lose those clients, but we didn't. They actually tripled their orders the first month we had taken it over, and then the next month the orders tripled even more because my wife was just going in and adding things. And
so is she the better business person?
I think as far as tweaking on the food stuff, yeah. She's just, because she liked it. She liked doing that, and she loves coffee. Like, I always rely on her on the tasting and everything of the coffee. It just, the way it was going, I don't want to knock the people who had the bakery before us. It was almost like they had fallen into a pattern, and so when you would get some of their items, they might not be as fresh, whereas when we took it over,
it's totally reasonable. Like, I don't feel like the peak of Ranger Up for me was right before the movie. That's where I felt like I was at my best. And then after the movie, I was always thinking about, how do I do my next movie, or how do I do my next thing? And I wasn't as fixated on being the best apparel company I could be. You get tired.
Yeah, it is. It's emotionally, not really physically, but the emotional part of it is exhausting, which in turn
and it sounds
exhausts you physically.
It sounds like their heads were on the church and on their new life.
Great people.
Yeah.
But she had, we own all the recipes now, and there were recipes that weren't being made. So Carrie's like, we could do these, and so everything was fresh. Everything that was made that day went out that day, and it just, business kept increasing. And of course, then we hit the delivery fees increasing, where gas skyrocketed, and we were delivering. We didn't charge any fees or anything, but we were looking at maybe having to. And her only requirement was that they needed to call her and tell her, this is what we're out of, this is what we need. And they wouldn't do it in a timely manner. They would wait till 8 or 9 o'clock that night for what they wanted to be delivered at 6 o'clock in the morning. And Carrie's like, I'm tired of that, because sometimes she would have to go back to the shop and start baking things. And she said, I think we need to cut off everybody that we're supplying except for the restaurant. And I was like, it's your baby, whatever you think. So she gave them 30 days notice, say, we're not going to be supplying you after this date. So we brought everything where it's all available in the coffee shop, and it's like just shot up. Business, it never went down. It just kept going up, and it allowed her to be even more creative and make some different things. And she likes experimenting, and she'll make
good for
something.
her.
Yeah, she'll make something and she'll run it out, and there's always a local, always a regular in there, and she'll come over to them. She says, hey, would you try this? And they'll give her feedback, and or she'll put samples up on the counter. People eat it, and they'll give us feedback. So it's like immediate.
Yeah.
We go back. So she likes doing it. And she's an early riser. She's up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and she's there, and I'll amble in at 8-ish. So, and that's pretty much it.
That's awesome.
And it's been fun.
So tell everybody where they can find your coffee, where they can find your baked goods. Where do they get this stuff?
The coffee you can get online. It's coffeecrafted.com.
That's coffeecrafted.com.
Yes. The coffee shop is at 3321 South Church Street in Burlington, North Carolina. The bakery is there. We don't sell anything online with the bakery, but pretty much everything's available. We're open 6 to 6 Monday through Saturday, and Sundays 8 to 3, and it's just a blast. I mean, don't come in thinking it's an average coffee shop. It's not. It's above average. I'm still learning every day, so it's pretty cool.
All right, here we go.
Oh, what we got?
As you know, we've got the
The
rapid fire
magic
questions.
question.
The first question, sir. What is the toughest animal you think you could defeat in hand-to-hand combat?
Oh, you didn't even read that.
I know.
Oh,
I never read that.
We ask this to everyone.
I thought of. I was thinking about this. I said they're going to ask me that damn animal question.
Literally ask everybody. So yeah.
I think I could safely take 2 feral cats.
2 feral
Two of
cats.
them.
All right.
2 of them.
What fictional character are you most like?
Well, what fictional character would I most like to be like? 'Cause
which
I
one
don't-
are
I
you
don't know
most
if I'm-
like?
I don't know
These
if
are
I'm-
rapid fire questions, sir. They're not think about it for a long time questions.
This is going to be all Magnum PI.
Magnum PI it is. When I think you, and I think Magnum PI.
I was listening to Jack Carr on the way up.
What
here.
was the worst piece of advice you got when you started your startup?
the worst piece of advice?
Yep.
You should franchise.
If you could invite 3 people to dinner, living, dead, fiction, nonfiction, who would they be?
My mom, Winston Churchill, and probably my great-grandfather. I've never met him, but I've seen pictures, and everybody, he's a pretty cool dude.
Very
cool
cool.
guy.
How many 7-year-olds do you think you could fight off before they'd overpower you?
4.
That's not a lot of 7-year-olds.
No, it's not.
What's your go-to karaoke song?
When the Shark Bites.
And we're going to need 10 seconds of you singing.
Fuck. I was afraid of that. Okay. When the shark bites with his sharp teeth, and he keeps them. You remember Steve Martin used to pearly white. And I can't remember the rest.
That's pretty
of
good. Hey, I'm gonna take that. That's some of the best work we've
Best
had.
work we've had.
What's been the favorite book you've read in the last 6 months?
The one I'm reading right now, Only the Dead, Jack Carr.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
He
I'm at
crushed
where he got the 308 Ferrari.
Don't ruin it for people.
I'm not ruining it.
Ruin it.
You had a chance to say Scars and Stripes. Way to not bring it.
No, it's okay. No.
Okay, I'll tell you what. When Tim Kennedy starts drinking Salvation coffee, that's when I'll mention his fucking book. Sorry, Nick.
What's your guilty pleasure or something you're embarrassed to admit you like?
Shit. I like
Big butts.
butts. I cannot lie. No.
You was this can deny.
I do like
anybody wasting a round thing in your
old school
Get sprung.
disco music.
Okay.
You know, the Bee Gees.
All right.
Some of the new shit too.
We know how to do it.
It's raining, man. Yeah. What's the next one?
I don't even know what the lyrics are. I just yeah. What would be your weapon of choice in a zombie apocalypse?
Oh, damn. A 1911.
All right. Apparently, he only wants to kill like a handful of zombies.
Yeah, it's 8 at a time.
Name your top 3 favorite types of cars. I like how he said 8 because he's got one in the pipe. You know?
Yeah.
My top 3 cars. Well, that Ferrari 308, the Magnum PI one.
It's a great one.
And Humvee and a 911.
Nice. What's one job no one could pay you enough to do?
President.
What celebrity would you most like to switch lives with?
Nobody.
Okay, but you have to pick one.
Oh, okay.
We're not saying you want to switch lives.
The
We're saying-
Brad of the Pit.
Yeah, it's hard to. Hard to
Him or
argue.
Keanu Reeves
He's had
is a toss-up.
he's had a good run.
Yeah.
He's had a good run. What's been your favorite age so far?
I'm going to do some math on that.
No, quick.
When did I turn? When I hit whatever age I was, 2015.
Terrible.
I think it was
Terrible.
48.
Terrible.
48.
It's just terrible.
Worst answer ever.
What's the most interesting place you've been so far? Is your final question, sir?
Most interesting place I've been so far.
Enemy territory.
Had to have been a
apparently.
church in Schweinfurt. Cool. I don't think I've been anywhere that was quite elaborate.
I thought you were gonna say when you were accidentally over the
Hollywood,
over
what
the
is it?
line.
We're trying to end this show.
I know. Before you close out, you should give us a minute of how awesome your wife is and how important she's been to you.
You really want those oatmeal cream pies, don't you?
I'm just telling you, if you leave that out.
Yeah, that's Hollywood's
She
guilty
is.
pleasure, right?
Yes. My wife Carrie, she is awesome. She, it's funny because my mom introduced us when I came home on leave, and as soon as I get off the plane, 13 hours, she's like, "I got somebody I want you to meet." So we go straight to Bojangles, where my mom was managing, and Carrie made biscuits.
Bojangles.
And I met her. I was like, "Okay, can I go home now?" And Carrie thought I was an asshole, and I thought she had a nice ass, and so I used it was Christmas time. I used the excuse like, "Hey, you want to go with me so I can find my mom a Christmas gift?" And I think we went and saw Eddie Murphy Raw. That was our first movie we went to, and she still hits me up with that. You took me to see Eddie Murphy Raw. That was our first movie.
And that was spicy back in the day.
Yeah.
That was like, actually, if you watch it now, I watched it recently, and you could never do it now.
No, never.
No comedian could do that now. They would be screwed.
But she,
Yep.
she's my sun, my moon, my stars. She corrects me if I'm being a butthole. I don't think our kids would be alive today if it wasn't for her. After they
that kind of
were born,
comes
'cause-
with
How did you
It's like,
propose?
let me explain how the birthing process
Either
works.
that, or it's like, what kind of danger are
did I
you putting your
propose?
kids into?
It wasn't anything. I think we were both working in a place that sold water treatment systems. Carrie's just as big a hustler as I am. And I think I just knelt down right then in front of everybody and said, "Hey, will you marry me?"
The
We
old
had
water treatment engagement.
It's a picturesque
If
background.
I've heard it once, I've heard it 1,000 times. And on that note,
That's it.
Jim Young, Salvation Coffee. It
Not
has
a
been
sponsor.
it has been
Not a sponsor.
Not a sponsor, even though we're drinking his coffee out of his cups. Jim Young, thank you so much for being on the show. It has been an almost Smitrovich affair. Smitrovich is, I believe, he's the record holder right now, right? Bill Smitrovich is the record holder for longest podcast.
Not Davies. Wow.
And we tried, Jim Young tried to pull a Smitrovich, but we're not letting it happen.
Damn it.
Because I'm looking out for you, Bill. Have a good time, guys. We'll see you
See you,
next
Bill.
week.